A few months ago, my nephew asked a question during dinner that nobody expected. Why does Grandpa ask so many questions now? The table erupted with laughter. My father laughed too. So asking questions is a crime now, he said. My nephew grinned and returned to his food. The conversation moved on, but the questions stayed with me because growing up, my father hardly asked questions at all. Not the important ones. Not the kind that revealed what was happening inside a person's heart. As I watched him that evening, listening carefully to my brother talk about work, I found myself thinking about a different dinner many years earlier. A dinner that revealed something painful about our family. The house was full, but somehow we were all lonely. I didn't understand it at the time. In fact, if you had asked me back then whether we were a close family, I probably would have said yes. We lived together, we ate together, we celebrated birthdays together, we attended church together. From the outside, we looked like a normal family, a healthy family, a happy family. But there is a difference between living together and knowing each other. And for many years, we didn't know each other at all. The dinner I remember happened shortly after I returned home from living away for almost 3 years. The house looked exactly the same gate, the same sitting room, the same dining table, the same television that always seemed louder than necessary. That evening, all 6 of us sat together for dinner. My father, Raymond, my mother, Helen, my older brother, Michael, my younger sister, Grace, my younger brother, Daniel, and me. For nearly 30 minutes, hardly anybody spoke. The television filled every silence. Forks scraped plates. Someone asked for water. Someone asked for more rice. That was about it. Nobody talked about their life. Nobody shared what was worrying them. Nobody talked about fears, dreams, disappointments. Nothing. When dinner ended, everyone disappeared into separate rooms. And as I sat there looking at the empty plates, a thought crossed my mind. If a stranger had watched us, they would have assumed we were a family, but emotionally, we were barely connected. The strange thing is that none of us intended for it to happen. We simply grew into it. Growing up, our family looked successful. My father worked hard. My mother sacrificed endlessly. Bills were paid. Food was available. School fees were never a problem. Nobody was neglected. Nobody was abused. Nobody was abandoned. Compared to many families, we had a good life. But there was one thing our family never learned how to do. We never learned how to talk about what was happening inside us. In our house, emotions were treated like private matters. If you were hurting, handle it quietly. If you were struggling, keep going. If you were afraid, pray about it and move on. Nobody announced these rules, yet somehow we all followed them. My father loved us deeply. I understand that now, but growing up, his love mostly arrived through responsibility. School fees paid, rent paid, electricity bills paid, groceries bought, those things mattered. They still matter. But they are not conversations. They are not understanding. They are not the same as looking a child in the eye and asking what is wrong. My mother was warmer, but she was also exhausted. She carried the weight of the entire household. Cooking, cleaning, working, managing crises, solving problems, looking after everyone. By the time she finished taking care of everybody else's needs, there was rarely enough energy left for deeper conversations, so each of us found our own hiding place. Michael disappeared into books and achievement. Grace disappeared into church activities. Daniel disappeared into football. And I disappeared into silence. The first time I truly felt alone inside our family happened when I was 16. I failed an important examination. Not completely, but badly enough to leave me devastated. I still remember sitting on my bed, staring at the result sheet, reading the same numbers over and over, hoping they would somehow change. For weeks, I carried the disappointment alone at dinner. I acted normal. At school, I pretended everything was fine. Inside, I felt like a failure. Not once did I tell anyone how badly I was struggling. Not because I didn't want support, because I didn't know how to ask for it. Years later, I mentioned that period during a conversation with my mother. She looked genuinely shocked. "You are struggling that much?" I nodded. She stared at me. I had no idea. Neither did my father, neither did my siblings. I had suffered quietly in a house full of people, and nobody knew. The heartbreaking part is that everyone else was doing the same thing. Years later, I discovered Michael had gone through one of the darkest periods of his life. After losing his first job, nobody knew. Grace experienced a heartbreak that left her questioning everything she thought she wanted in life. Nobody knew. Daniel spent years worrying he would never meet expectations. Nobody knew. My father carried financial pressures that often kept him awake until 2 in the morning. Nobody knew. My mother worried constantly about the future of the family. Nobody knew. We were all carrying burdens under the same roof at the same time, completely unaware of one another's pain. Then life interrupted our routine. My mother became seriously ill, not life-threatening, but serious enough to require hospitalization. Suddenly everything slowed down. The routine stopped, the distractions stopped, the busyness stopped. For the first time in years, we spent long stretches of time together. Hospital waiting rooms have a strange way of forcing people to sit with reality. There is nowhere to rush to, nothing to hide behind, just time. And eventually, truth. One evening, after visiting hours ended, we sat together in the waiting area. Nobody seemed eager to leave. The conversation drifted from medication to bills, from bills to life. Then silence settled over us. Not an uncomfortable silence, a tired one. Michael finally broke it. "Can I tell you all something?" Everyone looked at him. He stared at the floor before speaking. "When I lost my first job, I thought my life was over." Nobody spoke. I never told anyone this, but there were days I barely got out of bed. I stared at him. Michael, the confident one, the successful one, the brother who always seemed to have everything together. He gave a small laugh. "The funny part is that everybody thought I was doing fine." My mother looked stunned. "I didn't know that." "I know," Michael replied quietly. Then he shared something else. Some afternoons he would sit alone in his apartment with the curtains closed. His phone would ring, friends would call, family would call, and he would simply watch the screen until it stopped. The room became silent because suddenly we weren't hearing about Michael, we were seeing him for the first time. Then Grace spoke. I thought I was the only one pretending. Her voice was barely above a whisper. There were days I'd come home and cry in my room. My mother turned toward her. "Why didn't you tell me?" Grace smiled sadly. "I didn't think anybody wanted to hear it." Then Daniel spoke. He admitted how terrified he had always been of disappointing everyone. How every poor grade felt like proof he was letting the family down. How every comparison stayed with him for weeks. One confession opened the door for another. Years of silence started pouring into the room. Then my father spoke, and that shocked us most of all. For most of the conversation, he had remained quiet, listening, thinking, watching. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Maybe this is my fault." Everyone turned toward him. Even he looked surprised by what he had just said. He stared at his hands, then continued. "I spent so many years trying to provide for this family that I forgot to ask how everybody was doing." Nobody interrupted. "I thought if the bills were paid, everything else would be fine." His voice softened. "I thought my responsibility was to protect all of you from problems." He paused. Then he said something I will never forget. "But sitting here tonight, I am realizing I didn't even know what problems you were carrying." The room became completely still. For the first time in my life, I saw my father look vulnerable. Not weak, human. My mother started crying, not because of her illness, but because she realized how much pain had existed inside the family without anyone knowing. People who loved one another had spent years suffering alone, not because they lacked love, because they lacked conversation. That night changed something, not immediately, not perfectly, but permanently. After my mother recovered, we started building new habits. Small habits, simple habits, meaningful habits. The television stayed off during dinner. People asked questions and waited for answers. We checked on each other. We listened, we shared. At first, it felt awkward, like learning a language none of us had ever spoken before. In many ways, that is exactly what it was. We were learning the language of emotional honesty. Years passed, The family became closer, not because life became easier, not because problems disappeared, but because we stopped pretending problems didn't exist. Then my nephew asked his question, "Why does Grandpa ask so many questions now?" The memory faded. I looked across the table. My father was listening to Daniel explain a challenge at work, not interrupting, not giving advice, just listening. 20 years earlier, that conversation probably would never have happened. My nephew looked at me, still waiting for an answer. "So why does Grandpa ask so many questions?" I smiled. Because suddenly the answer felt obvious. Across the table sat the same man who had worked hard all his life to provide for his family, the same man who loved us, the same man who once believed providing was enough, but he had learned something all of us had learned. "Because he discovered something important," I said. My nephew tilted his head. "What?" I looked around the table, at the laughter, at the conversations, at the people who finally knew one another. Then I answered, "Because loving your family isn't enough." My nephew frowned. "What do you mean?" I smiled. "You have to know them too." For years, our house was full. The dining table was full. The bedrooms were full. The routines were full, yet somehow everyone felt alone. Today, the house feels different. Not because the walls changed. Not because the furniture changed. Not because the people became perfect. It feels different because people finally started sharing their hearts. And once that happened, the house stopped feeling like a place where people simply lived. It became a place where they belonged. Because families are not built merely by living together. They are built by knowing one another. And sometimes, the shortest distance in the world is not between two rooms. It's between two hearts waiting for someone to ask, "How are you really doing?"